Good afternoon. Welcome to the Cathay Group's 2023 interim results press briefing. My name is Andy Wong, the General Manager of Corporate Affairs for Cathay. Whether you are attending today in person or via webcast, it is a pleasure to see you all and thank you for joining us. Kindly note that Cantonese, Putonghua, English simultaneous interpretation is available at today's press briefing. Introducing our speakers for today. Chair, Mr. Patrick Healy. Chief Executive Officer, Mr. Ronald Lam. Chief Customer and Commercial Officer, Ms. Lavinia Lau. Chief Operations and Service Delivery Officer, Mr. Alex McGowan. Chief Financial Officer, Ms. Rebecca Sharp. Without further ado, let me invite our chair, Patrick Healy, to share his opening remarks. Mr. Chair, please.
Great, thank you, Andy, and good afternoon, and thanks to all of you for joining us today. So I'll begin by summarising the Cathay Group's interim results for 2023, and I'll then provide an update on the positive progress that we're making as we rebuild Cathay even better than before. So for the first half of 2023, the Cathay Group, including our airlines, subsidiaries and associates, reported an attributable profit of $4.3 billion. And this compares with a loss of $5 billion in the first half of 2022. Our airlines and subsidiaries, excluding exceptional items, reported an attributable profit of $4.8 billion. And this compares with a first half loss of $2.5 billion in 2022. In addition, we recognized a one-off non-cash gain of $1.9 billion as a result of the dilution of our interest in Air China following the completion of their A-shares offering in January. The results from associates, the majority of which are recognized 3 months in arrears, contributed a loss of $2.6 billion for the first half of 2023. And that compares to a 2022 first half loss of $2.5 billion. Considering the extraordinarily challenging circumstances that Cathay faced during the pandemic, these results represent a significant improvement, and they reflect the growing strength of our business. The group has been operating cash generative so far in 2023, and our liquidity balance was $28.9 billion as at the 30th of June 2023. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the Hong Kong SAR government and our shareholders for their continued support during and after the pandemic, in particular for the role they played in our recapitalization in 2020. Having already brought our preference share dividend payments up to date, we are pleased to announce that we plan to buy back 50%, that's $9.75 billion, of the preference shares held by the Hong Kong SAR government before the end of 2023, and to buy back the remaining 50% by the end of July 2024. As outlined in the National 14th Five-Year Plan, the Hong Kong International Aviation Hub has an important role to play in the overall development of the country. Through the connectivity it provides, the hub supports and facilitates the overall development of Hong Kong. And we're committed to continue to play a key role connecting Hong Kong, the Greater Bay Area, and the Chinese mainland with the world. As a group, comprising Cathay Pacific and HK Express, we are now close to 60% of pre-pandemic passenger flight capacity levels. We're on track to achieve our target of 70%, covering 80 destinations by the end of this year, and we're confident of reaching 100% by the end of 2024. Secondly, I would also like to express our sincere gratitude to our customers who have been supporting Cathay over so many years. Whilst we're pleased to be back in the top 10 of the world's best airlines in renowned industry rankings, the aviation industry continues to experience challenges which have hindered our ability to deliver the highest service levels that our customers expect. Our commitment to investing in Cathay to provide a better experience for our customers remains absolute. We are delighted to have announced earlier today our intention to purchase up to 32 additional single-aisle Airbus aircraft, which are expected to be delivered by 2029 and will join the fleets of Cathay Pacific and HK Express. And this will bring the group's new aircraft deliveries to up to more than 70. We're also excited to be bringing our customers an all-new business class experience in the second quarter of 2024 as part of the redesign of our long-haul Boeing 777-300ER cabins. And this will be followed by a new world-leading first-class cabin on board our 777-9 aircraft, the first of which is scheduled to join our fleet in 2025. And finally, I wish to share our heartfelt appreciation to all of our people. It's thanks to their tireless support of Cathay during difficult times and to their dedication as we rebuild that we have already started to achieve some early successes. And it's important that we share Cathay's successes with our people. We've already announced a special appreciation reward of up to 6 weeks of eligible pay, which has been well received. And today we are building on that by announcing a new profit-sharing scheme for our people. Whilst there is more still to be done, the progress that we've made on our rebuilding journey is testament to the fantastic work done by everyone at Cathay. We are on the right track, and we remain resolutely committed to the future of Hong Kong as we strive to achieve our vision of becoming one of the world's greatest service brands. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Before we take your questions, kindly note that our CEO, Ronald Lam, will provide a recap of some of the key points in Chinese in his closing remarks towards the end of the press briefing. A hard copy of the Chair's opening remarks in English and the CEO's closing remarks in Chinese can be collected from one of our colleagues after the press briefing, and a soft copy will also be sent to your email. Now, on to your questions. If you would like to ask a question, kindly raise your hand. I'll call on you, and one of our colleagues will bring you a microphone. Please state your name and the media organization you work for. Kindly limit the questions to a maximum of 2 so that we can respond to as many media friends as possible. Now, on to the first questions. I see a hand, so Danny, please.
Hi there, Danny Lee from Bloomberg News. Can you give some color on how the second half will perform? Will it be as strong or better than the first half? And does that explain why it gives you the confidence to pay or redeem half of the preference shares by the end of the year? My second question is whether you can give me some color on recruitment. Net headcount has risen from the end of last year by 500, but Cathay is expecting thousands to be hired. Where does that hiring stand now against target? And do you have any guidance on how many more you need by the end of 2024? Thank you.
Great. Thanks very much, Danny, for the questions. Let me just talk in general terms about financial performance, then I'll ask Rebecca to talk about the preference share planning and our thinking around those redemptions. We can't give you specific guidance for the second half, Danny, as you're well aware. What I would say is that we've been cash generative for the whole of 2023, and we're extremely pleased with the performance year to date, and we expect to continue to see a solid performance through the rest of the year. And we think that the current performance shows that we're well on the way on our rebuilding journey, and that it's also a testament to the tremendous work done by everyone at Cathay Pacific. Rebecca, do you want to sort of provide some color on our thinking in terms of preference share redemptions.
Yes, sure. Thank you. So you'll see in the results we've announced today, in addition to what Pat has just alluded to, our liquidity balance at the end of June was 28.9 billion. You'll recall, and as we'll talk about in the analyst briefing this afternoon, that's a combination of liquid funds and committed funds. And the liquid funds within that are around $24 billion. So on the back of that and looking forward at our projections, based on the, again, as Pat alluded to, being operating cash generative in the first half, we think now is the time to think about start bringing that liquidity balance down a bit. We carried it elevated through the pandemic because of the uncertainty, so we can start to bring it down a bit and therefore start to repay the money that the government invested in us in the preference shares, for which we're very grateful.
Great, thank you. And on recruitment, obviously the bulk of the recruitment activities are all on the operational side, so I'll ask Alex to take that question.
Yes, thanks, Danny. We're broadly on track with our recruitment plans. Cabin crew are the largest contingent. We've had 5,000 applications so far this year from Hong Kong, and we've had 600 people agree to join us after going through the selection process. We've also been recruiting people in some of our outports in Singapore, in Bangkok. And most excitingly, we have got underway now with our recruitment of cabin crew in the Chinese mainland. And just in the first week or two, we've had 2,000 applications. We're targeting 200 or 300 people from the Chinese mainland this year, and then that will become an ongoing feature of our recruitment. On the pilot front, we're well on track with our cadet recruitment. We've secured around 300 people from the 600 that we are looking for this year. And again, we've opened up recruitment to the Chinese mainland for the first time and already have several hundred applicants. On the ground, we're taking advantage of the importation of labour scheme that the government announced, and we're looking for around 1,000 people from that scheme, which will no doubt help alleviate some of the strains on our resources at Hong Kong International Airport. But we're on track with recruitment, and we're confident of our ability to meet our commitments to capacity, both 70% this year and 100% by the end of next year.
Thank you. Next question. Hello,
I'm Tara from Cable News, and I would like to ask my questions in Cantonese. 先想問翻啦，即係因為喺派息方面都未有派息啦，咁而家已經轉虧由虧轉盈啦，會唔會再有冇派息嘅時間表咧？咁另外就係可唔可以講翻，即係而家因為復常通關啦，你哋講到都有一個70% 嘅 target 啦，可唔可以即係去睇，即係其實嚟緊下半年覺得嗰個客即係人流嘅流量會點樣咧？即係而家暑假其實個客運量有冇上升咧？會唔會有再可以提升嘅空間咧？
唔該 ，Ronald 唔該。
首先咧喺中期業績啦，我哋好高興見到我哋中期業績都係一個好強勁嘅反彈。咁但係咧，我哋都仲係喺國泰重建嘅初期，咁所以喺普通股嘅股息方面咧，我哋會再審視我哋之後嘅表現啦。咁我哋再去睇情況去決定嘅。咁所以暫時咧，我哋都冇一個時間表。咁至於下半年啦，我哋暑假訂位嘅表現咧都係非常之好嘅，無論國泰又好啦，國泰航空或者香港快運咧，我哋見到暑期嘅訂位咧都係非常之理想嘅。
唔該 Ronald。Kenji。
Hi, thank you very much. I'm Kenji from Nikkei. Two questions. One is on the cargo front. Looking at the numbers, the amount carried it has increased, but the revenue has dropped. And would you please give us some color and also some, your outlook on the cargo front, and this has been supporting the company during this COVID period, but now it seems to be reversing, and the Chinese economy seems to be in the downturn. So would you please give me some color prospect on the cargo front? That's my first question. Should I go on? Okay,
yes,
okay.
yes, please.
Okay, my second question, is on your recovery plan. There are people saying that because Cathay, well, people don't say that it's your fault, but saying that since Cathay or the flights to Hong Kong has not recovered in full, therefore it's kind of holding back Hong Kong in terms of visitors, hotel operations, retail. How do you make of that? And also on this front, do you think you'll be able to get enough trained captains, pilots, by the time within your targets? You may be able to get untrained or less experienced pilots, but will you be able to get experienced pilots you really need to run your operation? Thank you.
Sure, great. Thanks, Kanji. I'm going to ask Lavinia to provide some more color on cargo, but maybe let me make a couple of points on cargo from my own perspective first. I think when you talk about the yield effectively for cargo this year being lower than in recent years, it's extremely important to bear in mind that 2022 and 2021 were just incredibly exceptional years in terms of cargo yield. So although the yield has come off from those record performances of the last 2 years, if you compare today's yield with any normal cargo year, 2019 or earlier, we're still in a reasonably strong market. It's a robust market, and performance is good. Hong Kong again was named the busiest cargo airport in the world. Cathay Cargo won the world's best cargo airline in 2022. So, the cargo performance still remains very, very strong. And of course, so much more cargo capacity has come back into the market, both within our fleet and within our competitors' fleets, as a result of passenger capacity returning to normal levels post-pandemic. So I think all of that context is important to understand, when you point to the lower yields that we're seeing today relative to 2022 and 2021. But having made that point, Lavinia, maybe you can sort of provide a bit more color on current performance and.
Sure, Pat. So as Pat has mentioned, the last 2 years were really exceptional for cargo. So I think I would say that this year, I think the overall market has normalized. Obviously, demand, you can say that it's not as strong as last year, but actually there's still a lot of cargo out there, especially for us where we are located. We are seeing very strong demand of e-commerce goods coming out from GBA. So we are definitely capturing quite a lot of those. So, and for Cathay Cargo, I think what we are focusing on this year actually is, firstly, as we continue to add back belly capacity, we are also bringing more destinations and choices to our customers, so that is a very strong point. And secondly, we also continue to invest in our expert solution, Cathay Cargo Solutions. Not sure if you have seen our big cargo marketing campaign recently at the Hong Kong station. So we know how is our slogan. So we are investing a lot in specialized Cathay solutions. So carrying cargo like, for example, farmer goods, live animals, fresh produce. So all these are higher yielding cargo and which need a lot of expertise to carry. So we are focusing and investing a lot more in these specialized segments also to extract the best.
Thank you. So your second question about the speed of recovery. Look, it is a fact that Hong Kong and therefore Cathay Pacific began our recovery journey much later, approximately a year later. Obviously, it depends who we compare ourselves to, but around a year later than most of our key regional competitors, right? So, are we behind in terms of the potential recovery? Absolutely, because we started a lot later and we came from a much lower base. It seems hard to imagine now, but this time last year we were reporting first half of 2022, we were still operating at 3% of pre-pandemic capacity, passenger capacity levels, right? So, we've come from an incredibly low base up to the point today where we're approaching 60% of pre-pandemic capacity. That's a very rapid rise. So, we started later, but the trajectory of that recovery, when compared with the trajectory of the recovery from their starting points of our key regional competitors, is absolutely on track in some cases faster. So, are we slow? No, we're building up quickly. Most importantly, we're absolutely committed to continue to build capacity as fast as we can, and that's what we're all focused on at the moment. You specifically asked about captains, training, etc. I think that's another question for Alex.
Yes, thanks, Pat. We certainly do have sufficient pilots and indeed cabin crew and operational staff at all levels to support our flight schedule. We did see an elevated turnover of pilots during the very difficult period of the pandemic, particularly in late 2021 and early 22. That turnover has now been back at normal levels for some time. We've been particularly encouraged by the return of around 250 pilots who left us during the pandemic, including around 70 senior captains, many of whom are training captains. And we're also really fortunate at Cathay to have 2,500 highly capable pilots. Many of them are skilled and experienced senior first officers, and they're now being given the opportunity to go through command courses and become Cathay captains. So we are on track with the recovery, and again with the 70% by the end of this year and returning to 100% next year.
Thanks, Alex. And I maybe just wrap up the response to your question, Kanji, by saying that we remain completely confident in the future of Hong Kong, and the role that Cathay Pacific has to play right at the center of the aviation hub, and the role that the Hong Kong International Aviation Hub plays as set out by the 14th five-year plan, demonstrate the commitment of everyone to the future of Hong Kong. We remain very optimistic about the future.
Okay. Thank you. 黑白間條位女士，唔該。
Hi, this is Peggy from Nikkei. I have two questions for you. First one, I noticed that the passenger revenue per ASK remained quite high at 67.5 cents Hong Kong D. So I would like to ask, how long do you think this is going to stay, and what could be done to improve the price and to go back to the regular level like before, around like 40 something? And the second question will be, since the mainland airlines are also trying to recover, so can you share us more colors in terms of the competitions among those airlines to try to get more mainland passengers? Thank you.
Great, thank you. Look, I'll ask Lavinia, I think, to address both of those questions in some more detail. Maybe just one point on, on the overall revenue. I mean, obviously, revenues per ASK at the moment are at very elevated levels compared to any sort of historical comparison. But I think it's very important that everyone understands this is not a Cathay Pacific phenomenon. It's not a Hong Kong phenomenon, right? This really is true for global aviation. Wherever you look across markets around the world in this post-pandemic period, those yields are at very elevated levels. So it's important to recognize that although the figures and the trends you point out are absolutely true, and it's very important, that this is representative of underlying trends within the entire aviation on a global basis. But having said that, Lavinia, maybe give your perspective
Sure,
on
sure.
ASK revenue and also competition.
Okay. Yes. Thanks, Pat. Yeah. So as Pat has alluded to, well, when you look at the high airfare phenomenon, it's actually a global phenomenon, not restricted to Hong Kong, and definitely not restricted to Cathay Pacific. So when we look at it, I believe there are two major drivers behind this phenomenon right now. Firstly, globally, post-pandemic, the aviation industry has been facing a lot of challenges, in particular supply chain. So the entire supply chain, we are seeing people shortages, materials shortages, and that coupled with the inflationary factors around the world, that has added to a lot of the cost pressure on all airlines operating. So these cost pressures will be reflected partially in ticket prices, and that's the same for all airlines, not just Cathay Pacific. So this is a worldwide phenomenon. Secondly, and there's also the demand-supply issue. So post-pandemic and when the borders reopen, we do see very strong demand, and demand is currently still, in a way, outpacing supply. So on that front, what we will do and we will continue to do is to make sure that we added more capacity as soon as possible. So, and as we have committed, we will be targeting by end of this year 70%, and by end of next year 100%. So with that supply getting more in line with demand, we expect that there will be more normalization of the fares. But I think obviously we still have to keep the first factor, which is the global cost pressures in mind. So that's on fares. And then in terms of competition, yes, of course, as we continue to bring back capacity into Hong Kong, we notice obviously other carriers will be doing the same. So for us, I think it's important that we focus on our own targets, again, in terms of capacity, bring back our capacity, bring back our network as much as possible, and we also continue to invest in our customer experience. So I think that's very important. And obviously, in terms of fares, we'll continue to make sure that we have competitive fares in the market.
Okay, thank you. Luke, 唔該你。
係經濟部嘅 Luke， 想用中文發問嘅。我想請教下，即係其實啱啱都有學家提到，即係中國嗰個經濟嘅因素啦。咁其實最近都見到嗰個中國經濟數據都比年初或者之前係弱咗嘅。咁其實你哋覺得會唔會影響到國泰無論係客運定貨運嗰個 growth 嘅 trajectory 同埋嗰個 load factor 都可能會受到影響呢？咁第二個問題想請教下關於嗰個購買新飛機嘅。咁都公佈咗可能會行使嗰個購買權就會買32架 A320-321啦。我想clarify 清楚係2029年開始接收啊，定係喺2029年之前去接收晒？咁第一架係會幾時啦？同埋其實都之前都有行家都報道過，可能你哋會考慮有一個short-term leasing 嘅方法去增加嗰個 capacity。咁你哋呢個會唔會係你哋嘅考慮嘅範圍啦？同埋而家大概有幾多架飛機仲係泊喺外邊嘅？唔該。
唔該 Luke。Ronald 唔該。
好。首先咧中國內地啦包括大灣區嘅市場咧，對於我哋未來國泰集團嘅發展係非常非常之重要，亦都係一個我哋非常重視嘅市場。咁頭先你提到中國內地嘅經濟數據啦，咁我哋都有關注。咁但係咧喺呢一刻嚟講咧，其實我哋見到由內地直飛國際，尤其是長途嘅航線咧，個恢復速度咧，比起我哋香港咧仲係慢。咁所以暫時我哋都見到好多乘客係經香港進出內地嘅需求咧，都係比正常咧係為高嚇。咁呢個咧都帶動我哋嘅航機嘅需求咧，都係一個正面嘅影響。咁所以呢個咧，我哋見到喺下半年可能都會係持續嚇。咁所以喺呢方面咧，我哋就唔係好擔心。咁至於新嘅飛機啦，其實我哋會喺2029年之前或以前去付運，就唔係2029年先至開始付運。咁呢32架飛機都係我哋向空中巴士直接購買嘅。咁我哋暫時咧都冇喺呢個窄體嘅飛機咧，我哋都冇考慮其他嘅租賃。咁第三個問題就係關於泊飛機嚇。咁我哋喺6月底咧，我哋國泰集團總共就有225架飛機。咁喺裏邊咧，其實得返25架度咧，係仲係泊喺澳洲。咁佢哋其中18架咧，其實都會喺今年年底會翻嚟香港嘅。咁所以咧到出年第一、第二季度咧，其實都泊飛機呢個問題咧，都希望係成為歷史㗎啦。
唔該 Ronald，thank you。Tony 啊，唔該。
Hi, this is Tony Chow from Singtao Daily. I have two questions. My first question is the capital reduction proposals. After it has approved, will Cathay Pacific still have to pay dividends to the government in the next year? And does this plan require government approval? And what is the impact of your financial costs and the dividend policy? And my second question is Cathay Pacific has announced the bonus to employee when they come across the past few years, and how many employees are involved in this bonus plan, and I just hear about that today you have announced the employee profit scheme, and can you give us some more details? Thank you.
Sure, thanks very much, Tony. The first part of the question is basically around preference share redemptions and the impact. Rebecca, that's one for you, I think.
Thank you for the question. So yes, today we've announced that we plan to do a capital reduction of 19.5 billion Hong Kong dollars. That will require approval from shareholders at an extraordinary general meeting, the date of which we'll announce in due course. Through doing that capital reduction, once that's complete, we can then start repaying the preference shares. Until we, and as we said in our announcement, we do intend to repay 50% of the preference shares by the end of this year. Until we repay preference shares, yes, dividends continue to accrue. So the next dividends will be due on the 12th of August and paid on the 14th of August. And until we've repaid all the preference shares, dividends will accrue on those dividends. In terms of the process, sort of the remaining preference shares, that will continue through until 2024. We hope to be able to redeem them all in full by the end of July 2024.
Thanks, Rebecca. Yep, I mean, on the people side of things, as I said, it's extremely important that we share the successes that we're starting to see as we rebuild Cathay. And Ronald, I think you'll take the specifics of the question on the special award scheme and the profit share.
頭先嗰記者係星島係嘛？哦，咁不如我用廣東話答你好嘛？首先咧，我哋國泰集團嘅同事咧上下一心，終於咧度過咗最艱難嘅3年。咁喺呢度咧，我都好衷心感謝我哋每一個同事喺呢3年嘅作出嘅付出。咁我哋重建嘅過程咧已經初步見到一個好好嘅成果。咁所以大部分同事咧都見到咧都係好開心。咁喺較早時間咧，我哋都宣布咗一個特別嘅酬謝金，就係俾喺疫情裏邊係同我哋共度時間嘅同事咧，最多係可以攞到6個星期嘅薪金。咁其實喺疫情留喺我哋公司、我哋集團嘅同事咧，其實都全部包晒，咁包括我哋嘅分公司都係包埋落去嘅。咁至於咧，我哋今日咧亦都喺內部咧，我哋都公布咗進一步就係點樣同我哋嘅員工咧喺今年同埋以至未來嘅2年點樣去再分享我哋嘅成果。咁呢個咧就係一個新嘅盈利分享嘅計劃。咁呢個計劃咧詳情咧，我哋會再向我哋嘅員工去公佈啦。咁但係咧其實喺我內部通訊嗰度咧，我都用咗一個好簡單嘅例子去俾大家同事知道咧，大約呢個計劃係會有啲咩成果咧嚇。咁我哋因為呢個計劃咧都好視乎今年下半年嘅業績，因為要睇全年2023年嘅業績咧，先可以決定到究竟可以派到幾多獎金。咁但係咧我就用一個例子，就係用舊年下半年，即係2022年下半年加埋今年上半年。如果我哋用呢個全年嘅業績作為一個例子咧，喺呢個盈利分享計劃裏邊咧，我哋大約係可以向我哋集團嘅員工咧分享到大約4個星期嘅薪金嘅嚇。咁詳情咧，我哋會稍後再喺內部去通告。咁我見到咧，其實我哋都好鼓舞啦，我哋可以終於捱過呢3年，亦都可以同我哋嘅同事啦去分享呢啲成果，咁都係令到我哋非常之鼓舞。咁我哋同事嗰個6個禮拜嘅特別酬金咧，其實同事咧都係非常非常之開心嚇。好多同事咧都親自同我講，佢哋係好開心見到咧公司終於咧捱過最艱難嘅時候，亦都咧開始可以見到一啲初步嘅成績。多謝。
Ronald. Laura?
Hi, good afternoon. Laura Westbrook from the South China Morning Post. I wanted to ask if there are any challenges or headwinds ahead as you rebuild for the rest of the year and next year. Is it, for example, higher inflation impacting demand? And then second question, do you see Cathay reaching 100% of pre-pandemic passenger capacity before the end of 2024? Thank you.
Yeah, Ronald, I think I'll ask you to take those. Thanks, Laura.
Sure. We are highly aware of the potential risk and issues as we build. And indeed, we are facing a number of challenges as we build. The main challenges is faced by actually the whole aviation industry worldwide about manpower shortage as well as supply chain issue. And these won't go away shortly, but we believe as we go into 2024, things are going to improve and normalize. And we would do our best to navigate these rebuild issues. But I must say, compared to the challenges we faced in the last 3 years during the pandemic, all these are, I would so-called happy problems, right? At least I think we get to fly and we get to rebuild, and we will face up to this challenge with the usual can-do spirit that we have within the Cathay Group. Regarding 2024 rebuild progress, first of all, I think we are still very focused on reaching 70% by end of this year. This is really our current focus. But at the same time, we have already started to make plans about 2024. And as mentioned before, on the travel side, between Cathay Pacific and HK Express, our goal is to reach back 100% of pre-pandemic passenger flight level by end of next year. So at the moment, we are still working on the planning, but this remains our goal, and we are fully committed to do that because that will be important in the rebuild of the Hong Kong International Aviation Hub, which we play a large role. And by the end of next year, the 3-runway system will be operational, and we really want to get back to our full capacity before we go into the 3-runway system.
Okay, thank you. Perhaps last question from the floor. 白色衫嗰位小姐，唔該。
鳳凰衛視記者 Scarlett 啦，咁我就會用粵語嚟問翻個問題啊。咁因為見到咧就係國泰即將推出呢個2亞商務艙啦，咁見到係旗下嘅一批嘅飛機啦，都會做翻個咁樣嘅一個 update 啦。咁其實想問下你哋有冇考慮或者預計大概會投入幾多成本去做呢件事？咁同埋咧喺呢個時間節點嚟推出咁樣一個升級嘅商務艙啦，其實有冇預計話到時候？出年2季度推出咗之後，有邊啲嘅正面嘅影響同埋幫助咧？唔該。
多謝你嘅問題，或者由我答啦。咁首先多謝你留意到我哋2亞商務艙嘅推出啦。咁我哋星期1嘅時候就出咗一段短片啦，咁介紹呢一個我哋全新嘅商務艙嘅產品啦。咁其實我哋一路都，就算喺疫情期間，我哋一路都冇停過，我哋喺背後即係想諗下點樣可以一路再提升我哋俾顧客嘅即係個成個嘅體驗嘅。咁我諗即係2亞商務艙就係經過好多個月好多同事嘅心血之下出到嚟嘅一個產品啦。咁我哋而家係應該係會出年嘅，希望喺第2季度嘅時候會喺我哋嘅波音777-300ER 呢個即係我哋長途嘅客機嗰度推出啦。咁暫時我哋暫時都係想俾住一啲點樣講咧少少嘅提示大家先啦。咁我諗跟住落嚟跟住嗰幾個月咧，我哋就會再公布多啲關於即係成個2亞商務艙嘅詳情啦，裏面同埋即係我哋成個嘅設計背後嗰個心思啦，同埋真係顧客會可以睇到嘅嘢係啲乜嘢嘅。咁但係我諗暫時只係俾住少少。劇透少少俾大家，咁希望大家顧客可以知道我哋其實我哋真係背後係我哋做緊好多嘢，我哋都真心係會想繼續去提升我哋俾到顧客嘅一個服務體驗嘅。多謝大家。
Okay, I think we have a couple of questions online, but they're mostly related to aircraft, so maybe I'll combine and we can address it in one go. So the question is around, could you tell us What are the further needs you're looking to address with aircraft orders being considered? Also, can you give us an update on the progress of returning parked aircraft to service? And on exercising the 32 purchase options, is there a decided split between the A320neo and A321neo as yet? And when is the first of those additional aircraft likely to be delivered? Thank you.
Sure, thanks. Alex, I think, could you cover the fleet questions?
Yes, certainly. We have a number of aircraft already in the delivery pipeline, new A321neos. That was an order that we placed back in 2017. And so far as a group, we've taken delivery of 13 of those with 19 more to come. Those will be delivered through to 2025, mid-2025. Thereafter, up until the end of 2029, we will take delivery of the new order of 32 Airbus A321 and A320neos. We have some flexibility as to the split between Hong Kong Express and Cathay Pacific, and we'll be exercising that discretion in due course. We don't have specific numbers to share at this stage. In terms of returning aircraft from long-term storage outside Hong Kong, at the end of June, we had 25 aircraft in storage. In Australia, that's now down to 24. As Ronald said earlier, 18 of those will be returned to Hong Kong and put back into service before the end of this year. And then the remaining 4 out of 5 will come back into service in 2024. One of those aircraft won't come back into service.
Okay, thank you. And the final question from our online audience. Can you tell us more about the business contribution or the business from the Chinese mainland? And how are you managing the Chinese economy, as is the latest reporting numbers are not as bright? And how does it affect Cathay Pacific? Thank you.
Thanks, Andy. Lavinia, why don't you just talk about general contribution from the mainland, and then we'll I'll add a few comments on the overall situation.
Sure, Pat. So I think, as Ronald has also mentioned, the Chinese mainland market is a very important market to us, and right now, because especially when the direct capacity between Chinese mainland and other, especially the long-haul countries, have not fully resumed, so we are definitely carrying a lot of passengers via Hong Kong. So the contribution from Chinese mainland is continuing to be at a very healthy level. And also, as we continue to invest more in the GBA area, we also start to see a lot of some of the returns from that. And given the GBA market is very close to us and our continued investment, so we can foresee that GBA as part of Chinese mainland, the whole market will continue to be a very important part of our revenue contributions in future.
Thanks. Actually, that covered pretty much everything I was going to add. So thanks, Lavinia.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so well, thank you to all our speakers, and thank you for all your questions. I would like to now invite our CEO to summarize the vital key points in Chinese before we end the briefing. So, Ronald, please.
各位傳媒嘅朋友，午安！好多謝大家咧今日抽空出席今日嘅傳媒發佈會。今年以嚟咧，國泰團隊上下一心，為香港努力重建更勝從前嘅國泰。雖然我哋面對唔少嘅挑戰，整體咧依然取得令人振奮嘅進展。國泰集團喺疫情期間經歷嚴峻嘅考驗之後，今年上半年業績表現錄得強勁嘅反彈，反映經濟環境持續改善，業務實力不斷增強。2003年上半年，國泰集團錄得應佔溢利港幣43億港元，截至2023年6月30號，集團嘅流動資金結餘為289億元。至於其他業績嘅數據，剛才咧主席已經概述，而且詳情咧亦都刊載於我哋相關嘅通告，所以咧我喺呢度咧就唔再重複。為住我哋中期業績有好嘅表現呢，我再次感謝香港特別行政區政府同埋我哋嘅股東，自疫情至今呢， 尤其對我哋集團喺2020年嘅資本重組計劃嘅大力支持。喺最近呢，付清咗所有累計嘅優先股股息之後，我哋今日亦好高興去宣布，集團計劃喺2023年底前呢回購50%嘅優先股，涉及港幣97億5千萬港元。並且咧會喺2024年嘅7月底前呢回購餘下嘅50%優先股。我哋國家14-5規劃裏邊呢，定明香港國際航空樞紐喺國家發展裏邊呢係擔當一個非常重要嘅角色，亦都支撐住香港另外7大中心嘅發展。國泰呢會致力承擔呢個重任，繼續加強香港、大灣區同埋中國內地同埋世界嘅聯繫，推動香港全方位嘅發展。集團旗下國泰航空同埋香港快運嘅客運運力，現時呢已經係非常接近疫情前嘅60%嘅水平，並將於2023年底運作70%嘅客運運力，覆蓋80個航點。我哋呢並且係有信心喺2024年底恢復100%嘅水平。除此之外呢，我亦都衷心感謝國泰顧客對我哋多年嚟大力嘅支持同埋體諒。我哋好榮幸啦，今年喺各個著名嘅行業排名裏邊呢，我哋都重返世界10大最佳航空公司之列。但係呢，我哋亦都好明白，全球航空業喺疫後復甦呢，仍然面對好多唔同嘅挑戰。暫時咧影響咗我哋為顧客提供最優質嘅服務。我哋承諾咧會投放更多嘅資源，不斷改善同埋提升我哋顧客嘅體驗。今日咧較早前，我哋已經公布計劃額外訂購多達32架空中巴士 A321neo 同埋 A320neo 嘅飛機。新飛機咧將於2029年底前呢陸續交付國泰航空同埋香港快運，即係咧我哋成個集團加埋咧，我哋將會接收多達超過70架新嘅飛機喺未來嘅年份。與此同時咧，我哋會就長途嘅波音777-300ER 機隊嘅客艙咧作出重新嘅設計。喺2024年開始為顧客帶嚟全新嘅商務客艙體驗。我哋亦會喺2025年開始接收777-9嘅客機，引進全新嘅設計同埋領先全球嘅頭等客艙。最後，我亦都要衷心感謝國泰集團嘅同事喺最艱難嘅時期裏邊呢，大家係堅守崗位。並且喺重建國泰嘅過程裏邊呢，作出咗重大嘅貢獻，令到我哋呢取得咗豐碩嘅初步成果。我哋非常肯定我哋同事嘅付出，亦都期望呢喺我哋重建嘅過程裏邊，同事可以一齊同我哋分享成果。集團已經喺較早前公佈向我哋嘅同事發放最多6個星期合資格收入嘅特別酬謝金。我哋咧樂見我哋嘅同事反應非常之正面，亦都為我哋嘅士氣注入咗一支強心針。今日咧，我哋更會向同事公佈一項適用於2023到2025年度嘅分享盈利計劃。2023年度可以向同事發放嘅金額呢，當然仍要視乎今年下半年我哋嘅業務嘅表現。但係呢，如果我用一個例子作為說明，如果以2022年下半年以及2023年上半年嘅業績作為計算嘅話呢，喺新嘅計劃裏邊，每位同事呢大約係可以得到相當於4個星期嘅額外合資格收入。我哋繼續邁進重建國泰之路， 現階段呢進展係令人鼓舞，印證咗我哋嘅同事嘅努力同埋我哋顧客嘅支持。我哋已經步上咗重建嘅正軌，將繼續堅定咁貢獻建設美好嘅香港，並且使國泰成為全球最傑出嘅服務品牌之一。多謝各位。
Thank you, Ronald, and thank you again to all our speakers. This concludes our press briefing. If you have further questions, please email them to press@cathaypacific.com. Thank you very much for joining us. Have a good day. Thank you.